I didn't ask for any of this. All I wanted to do was go home, sit in front of my television, and veg out. Now, I'm a serial killer. That's right, I said it. I'm a serial killer. Oh, but it gets better. I actually eat my victims. And the irony is, I was a vegetarian before this happened. I know, that's a lot to process. So I guess I should start from the beginning. My name is Faith, and I'm a ghoul. Well, sorta, but not really. Most days, I'm just like everyone else. The catch is, every once in a while, I have to kill someone. If I don't, let's just say bad things happen. This all started at the farmer's market on a Tuesday afternoon. I just grabbed a few things and was on my way back to my car when some random lady asked me for the time. When I went to check my watch, she rushed me, grabbed my arm, and bit it. Screaming and dropping my bags, I shoved her away from me, which caused her to trip and fall. While I was looking at the bite mark on my arm, the woman pulled a gun and then said, "I'm sorry," before putting it to her head and pulling the trigger. The shock of witnessing someone splattering their own brain matter across the pavement was traumatizing. Between the ringing in my ears and the smell of scorched skull, I couldn't take it. I threw up everywhere. Everything's kind of a blur after that. I remember the EMTs checking me out and talking to the police. But the next thing I know, I'm at the hospital having all kinds of tests run on me. When I was finally cleared to leave, I had to take an Uber back to the farmer's market to get my car before I could go home. Sadly, that was the last semi-normal day of my whole life. I wish I could say that I took some time away from work to get myself together, but that would be a lie. The truth is, I couldn't afford to miss a day. I lived paycheck to paycheck, and rent was coming up soon. The good thing is I worked in a pawn shop, and most days were pretty quiet. I typically sat around waiting for customers. It was a cold, rainy Wednesday afternoon, and as usual, the shop was pretty dead. I was passing the time watching videos on my phone when the chimes above the door sounded. Quietly putting my phone away, I glanced up to greet the customer, but there was no one there. The way that the building is set up, anyone that comes through those doors has to walk directly towards the counter. There's no way around it. I should have seen someone standing there. This uncomfortable chill rolled up the back of my neck as I slowly scanned the runway, then looked around the shop. Once I was sure no one was there, I relaxed a little and tried to shrug it off. Rather than going back to my phone, I decided to go through the DVDs no one was buying and put a movie on. After digging through the stacks for a while, I came up with a Jurassic Park box set and smiled. I loved that movie. It was the perfect way to wrap up my shift. With movie in hand, I turned around and froze. The woman from the farmer's market was standing behind the counter, dripping brain and bits of skull on the display case. I couldn't move. I was forced to watch her slowly open her mouth, releasing a wave of blood and broken teeth. As it ran down her chest and spilled all over the counter, she brought up her hands to cover her face. Then everything went still. All I could hear was the rhythm of the rain hitting the window and the beating of my own heart. That moment felt like it lasted forever, but in reality, it was over way too soon. The next thing I heard was the wet tearing of flesh as she stripped away her own face. Bloody ribbons of skin stretched and peeled back, revealing a hideous creature with sharp black teeth. It screamed and in the blink of an eye, leapt up on the counter and dove at me. All I could do was close my eyes and wait for impact. But it never came. Slowly, the sound of rain crept back in, and I realized I could move. Gasping and immediately opening my eyes, I nervously scanned the shop, but it was empty. I knew the woman was dead. There was no way for her to actually be here, but that didn't stop me from being scared. I was so horrified by that hallucination that I hadn't realized I was still holding on to the Jurassic Park box set. After putting the movie back, I went to my seat behind the counter and didn't move until my shift was over. When I got home, all I wanted to do was sleep. It took everything in me not to crash on the couch. The moment I got to my bed, it was over. I flopped down and was asleep before the bed could stop moving. I dreamt I was chasing a rabbit through the woods, but I couldn't catch it. No matter how hard I tried, the bunny just kept getting away. After chasing it for a while, the forest slowly morphed into empty city streets. Then I woke up. Yawning and stretching, I tossed the blanket off and slipped out of bed. Zombie walking towards the restroom, I passed the mirror, caught a glimpse of myself and stopped. I was covered in dirt and there were leaves in my hair. It was a surreal moment. A million questions raced through my mind as I tried to figure out what just happened. The first thing I thought of was my dream, and I immediately looked back at my bed. Frowning at the sight of leaves and dirt on my blankets, I noticed footprints leading from my bedroom door to the bed. Squeezing my eyes shut and rubbing my temples, I fought the urge to freak out by taking a few deep breaths to center myself. Once I was calm enough to think straight, I got myself cleaned up and then set my mind on everything else. I changed the sheets and blankets and swept and vacuumed the floor before moving to the hall. Cleaning up helped distract my mind a little, but as I was putting things back in order, memories of what happened started coming back. I saw myself slipping out of bed and walking through the house. For some reason, I stopped and stared at my reflection on the television for close to an hour. After that, I went to the back door, opened it, and stepped out. Everything went blank from there. The next thing I remember clearly was waking up. I didn't know what was happening to me. It had been 2 days since the attack, and I felt like I was losing my damn mind. Maybe it was stress of the situation. I mean, seeing someone commit suicide couldn't be healthy. One doctor told me I'd need to see a therapist to deal with the trauma, but I hadn't done it yet. The problem was I couldn't afford it. The best I could hope for was a support group, so I started checking into it. After doing some research, I found out there were tons of free support groups for victims of violence, and there was one not far from me. The next meeting was Friday night, and the timing was perfect. I'd be able to stop by right after work. I had no idea if it would help, but the idea gave me a sense of relief, so I was looking forward to it. My day wasn't bad. Work was boring and traffic sucked on the way home, but nothing crazy happened. When I got home, I ate popcorn and binge-watched Naked and Afraid till I fell asleep. I dreamt I was downtown, marveling at the sights and smells as I wandered the streets till someone started following me. At first, I only caught a glimpse, a shadow lurking in my peripherals, just out of sight. I never truly saw who it was, But at some point, I started feeling scared, so I ran, and that's when I woke up. As I was lying there, I stared up at the ceiling and smiled. It was Friday, and as odd as that sounds, I was excited to go to my first group meeting. A part of me wondered if it was anything like I'd seen on television. You know what I'm talking about. There's always a group sitting around sharing their experiences, while some other guy sits in front of them, nodding and analyzing their stories. I was a little apprehensive about talking to a group of strangers, so my plan was to sit back and observe. I wanted to see how they did things and get a feel for it before I committed to opening up. Satisfied with my plan, I got out of bed and stretched. As I exhaled and relaxed my arms, the realization that I was in my bedroom hit me. I'd fallen asleep on the couch watching television, and I do not remember going to bed. I silently started looking around the room. I didn't see anything out of place, so I went over to the mirror to check myself out. Once again, everything was in order. No leaves in my hair, no dirt on my face. Letting out a sigh of relief, I decided to go ahead and brush my teeth since I was already at the sink. Reaching for my toothbrush, I caught a closer look at my reflection and paused. My eyes were the wrong color. Normally, I have light brown eyes, but now they were nearly black. Shocked by what I was seeing, I blinked a few times and then took a closer look, but they'd gone back to their natural light brown color. Praying that it was a trick of the light, I tried to shrug it off and get my morning started. Once I was all cleaned up and had a cup of coffee in me, I was ready to hit the streets. When I grabbed my keys and headed out the door, I immediately noticed something was wrong. There was an ornament attached to my keys that wasn't there before. It was a little red, white, and black tennis shoe, made to look like a Jordan 1. In itself, it wasn't all that amazing, but I didn't put it there, and it was freaking me the hell out. I unclipped it from my keys and stared at it for a second, wondering where the hell it came from. Sure, it was neat, but it wasn't my style, and I had absolutely no memory of buying it. Frowning, I tossed it in the trash, then took one last look at my apartment before heading out. Despite how odd my morning had been, once I was in my car and rolling, I managed to relax a little. There were a few hours to kill before work, so I did some shopping and then stopped to grab something to eat at one of my favorite spots. I was halfway through my meal when I happened to glance up and see that there was this guy watching me from about 3 tables away. When he caught me looking back at him, he got up and I instantly got so nervous. As he got closer, I tensed up, thinking he was about to try something. But instead, he strolled right past me and left the restaurant. The tension of the situation had me so rattled that I couldn't finish eating. Getting a to-go box, I paid my bill and headed off to work a little early. Once I was clocked in and my day was underway, things moved pretty quickly. The first hour was the worst. I spent the majority of it dealing with customers trying to pawn off a bunch of fake gold. When that was finally over, things sort of leveled off and the day moved along. It was a little busier than usual. I wound up having 6 or 7 customers, all coming in, selling something, or bought something from the shop. Before I knew it, my day was over and I was walking to my car. Since I wasn't going straight home, I stopped at the gas station to grab a soda and fill up. I was at the pump, sipping some Dr. Pepper and getting some gas when I got the feeling that someone was watching me. There was no one at the pumps, and I didn't see anyone standing around, but the feeling wouldn't go away. Slowly scanning my surroundings, I caught sight of an old man in a brown hoodie sitting at a bus stop across the street. He wasn't looking at me. As a matter of fact, he kind of looked like he was sleeping. Obviously, he could have been faking it, but seeing him like that put my mind at ease for some reason. In any case, I finished getting gas and then hopped into my car and headed towards the meeting. When I arrived at the community center, there were a few people standing around smoking cigarettes and talking. One in particular caught my attention as I parked. He was sitting at a bench separated from everyone else. His long hair, bushy beard, and tattoos made him stick out from the rest, but that's not why I noticed him. To be honest, I don't know why my attention was drawn to him, it just was. Nervous, but still excited about the meeting, I sat in my car till everyone went in and then made my way to the meeting. Aside from the counselor, Bill Jacobs, and myself, there were only 6 other people. We met in a large open room and sat in folding chairs arranged in a circle. Everyone introduced themselves and gave their reason for being there. Then Bill took over and eased us into the process. When everyone started sharing, I was blown away. Some of the stories I heard made me feel like I shouldn't be there. First was this lady named Julia. She'd been kidnapped at gunpoint and forced to empty her bank account before being assaulted and left for dead. Just hearing about it made me sick. The next story came from an older guy named Harold. He'd been walking through the park when a group of teenagers attacked him and live streamed it on the internet. I remembered seeing this story on the news, but hearing the aftermath was heartbreaking. The poor guy was so scared to go anywhere alone now, and he'd completely stopped going to public parks. The next couple of stories weren't so horrible, but when it got to the guy with the tattoos, I was floored. His name was Travis. He'd been forced to watch his best friend be murdered before being shot several times himself. I hadn't planned on sharing, but there was no way I could hold back after hearing all of that. Long story short, by the end of the meeting, I wasn't necessarily feeling better, but I was a little relieved. The whole experience left me in a thoughtful haze as I made my way out of the building. I didn't snap out of it till I was about halfway to my car, and Travis stopped me.
Hey, you got a second?
I stopped to look at him and shrugged. Sure, why not? You're Travis, right?
Yeah, that's me. I was listening to what you said back there. Did you ever find out who that lady who bit you was?
No, not really. It just happened a few days ago. The police are supposed to be investigating it. Digging in his pockets and pulling out a pack of cigarettes, he offered me one and lit it when I declined. Exhaling away from me, he chuckled and shook his head.
Good luck with that. But if I were you, I'd do some research on my own.
He paused and then did something odd. He looked at me and sniffed the air and frowned.
I gotta go, but you should check into that before it's too late.
Taking another drag of his cigarette, Travis gave me a slight nod and then walked off. As he got further away, I spoke up so he could hear me. Hey, you can't just say something like that and walk away. What do you mean too late? Too late for what? Instead of turning back or responding, he threw up a dismissive hand and kept walking. Concerned and a little confused, I got in my car and went home. Normally, a Friday night would consist of me calling up some friends and hanging out, but ever since the incident, I've been overly exhausted. I was falling asleep earlier and earlier every night, and tonight was no different. When I walked through the door, I kicked off my shoes, then grabbed a snack and flopped down on the couch. Grabbing the remote and turning on the television, I put the news on and dozed off almost immediately. My mind took me back to the forest. I could smell the fresh air and feel the cool grass between my toes. There was something different about this dream. It didn't feel like the others. Before now, everything was disconnected. It was like watching myself from the outside. Now, I was in the driver's seat, and it felt amazing. It was an odd, almost electric sensation that rolled across my skin as a breeze blew in, carrying the scent that made my mouth water. I wanted to. No, I needed to know where that smell was coming from. Sniffing the air like a bloodhound, I wandered off into the woods without a second thought. I'm not an outdoorsy person. If someone were to ask me to go camping, I'd say no 9 times out of 10. So it was completely out of character for me. The strange thing is, I didn't feel lost or out of my element. Instead, I was comfortable, almost relaxed. I weaved in and out of trees and hopped over roots while racing through the darkness. The scent would get strong and then fade with the wind, but I knew I was close, so close. As I was breaking through a small clearing, I stopped and stood still, listening to the environment. A rustling of leaves as the breeze cut through the trees almost masked the crunching of small footsteps in the brush. This was it. The aroma was so thick I could taste it in the air. Moving slowly and staying silent, I crept to it within striking distance, then dove into the brush. The first few seconds were chaotic. I couldn't see anything, but I could smell it and hear it getting away. Scrambling and frantically grabbing anything that moved, I caught a glimpse of something small and furry. It was a rabbit. I was finally going to catch it, but I had to be quick. Spotting the bunny trying to go under a section of the brush, I reached out with lightning speed and grabbed its hind legs. Just as I felt the soft, warm fur in my palm, everything went black. A thick, coppery taste coated the inside of my mouth as I slowly opened my eyes. I was still in my living room, but I was on the floor instead of the couch. Blinking a few times, I sat up and immediately felt sick to my stomach. I'm proud to say that I didn't throw it all up, at least not right away. I managed to hold it until I saw what was on the floor next to me. There were bits of fur and a few bloody bones left lying on the floor near what was left of a partially eaten rabbit.